Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 149. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation, Dave. Monday, we were wondering what will we talk about, and the football gods were kind to us and gave us one big discussion point. Strong safety Deshawn Elliott signing a 2-year extension with the team earlier this week. Not officially announced by the team, I don't believe, but Elliott's confirmed. It's already been reported a million ways to Sunday. So that will be this top of today's show. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing well on this Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to all the listeners as well too. And yeah, thankfully we came out of Monday wonder what we'll be talking about, and the Steelers gave us a little bit of news by signing Deshawn Elliott to a 2-year extension. So that will be the top topic of today's show, and we'll kind of go through that. And then I think we'll talk a little bit about the defensive side of football, and we'll see if anything else pops up while we're on here for probably an hour or so. So I guess we'll start with the Deshawn Elliott news.
A defensive edition of the Terrible Podcast. So the Elliott news dropping late Monday night around, I think, 10 p.m. or so. Yeah, right around 10 p.m. 2 years, $12.5 million extension, $9.21 million in guarantees per Tom Pelissero. I don't think we have the exact breakdown of that contract and all the particulars out yet. That should come within the next couple of days, but 2-year extension, Elliott signing a 2-year, $6 billion deal ahead of the 2024 season that would have made him a free agent after 2025. Pittsburgh solves that, gets him locked up long term.
Yeah, we kind of talked about the potential extension candidates outside of guys like TJ Watt this offseason, and how the cash and the cap situation and the play of one Deshawn Elliott in his first season in Pittsburgh last season set him up as a candidate to be extended this offseason. I kind of thought if we did see a Deshawn Elliott extension that it might be a little bit later in the summer, but props to the Steelers for getting that out of the way now. As it is being reported, 2 additional years being added on at a total of $5 million total. That would make his new money average $6.25 million, up from the original $3 million overall. And if the reporting stands as it is, with the $9.21 million guaranteed, we assume that's the cash that he'll take home in 2025 as well too. He was scheduled to earn $3 million in cash in 2025. If indeed that number sticks and it's 9.21, that's a nice little raise from going from 3 million to 9.21 million in 2025. I'm assuming the way these initial numbers are laid out here that we're talking about a signing bonus of probably $7.955 million, probably a minimum base salary of $1.255 million. If indeed that's the way it's laid out, that would make his salary cap charge in 2025 $4.656666 million, up from $3.75 million. So not even a $1 million increase in his 2025 cap number. I'm assuming that the 2026 and 2027 base salaries will be really in line with each other, and would not be shocked if they are matching numbers of 3.145 million. If indeed that's the case, that would make his cap charges in 2026 and 2027 of 5.796666 million and 5.796668 million. So once again, we're waiting for the particulars related to that. Obviously, probably not any guaranteed money past 2025. If you want to look at this of what it essentially is, assuming these numbers are again correct, it is really he's playing 1 year at $9.21 million, and you got 2 option years on top of it, and a deserving reward for Deshawn Elliott based on the way he played in 2024. And once again, a nice raise going from 3 million to 9.21 million this year. And then obviously the additional cash expenditure. We talked about how this team has a lot of cash to spend remaining the rest of this offseason. You're using up 6.21 million of additional cash above and beyond the 3 million that he was scheduled to earn. So I think we both thought there was a good chance that this could happen. It has now happened, and good for Deshawn Elliott.
How do you feel about the deal, Dave? I really like it. Even on the extension, it's not a ton of money. It's very economical and quote unquote team friendly. So this is a guy that impressed last year. Frankly, might have had the best season of any of the 2025 or 2024, I should say, additions. 108 tackles, solid run stuffer, could fill and fit the run, brought energy, super reliable tackler, arguably the best tackler in the entire NFL last season. The metrics bear that out. I really like Pittsburgh being proactive, getting this deal done ahead of him being months away from free agency. Had it waited until after 2025.
Yeah, look, if you look at just the new money average overall of 6.25 million, up from 3 million. I mean, you're doubling his APY, if you will, and even in doing so, he's still like the 30th highest paid safety in the NFL at this point. So it's not like you took him into the top 20 or even the top 25. I think Elijah Molden from the Chargers signed a new deal recently, and his new money average is 6.25 million. So I mean, you gave him a raise, but even in giving him a raise and doubling his APY, he's still in the, barely in the top 30 here, if you will, when it comes to safeties. And once again, you had a team that had to get some cash spending off the books this offseason. And I thought, he won't go. The signing of Deshawn Elliott last offseason was one of those, well, you kind of hope, you kind of hope that they got a guy that'll fit in this defense and kind of give you some stability. I don't think anybody envisioned the kind of impact that he did have. A good player in the box overall. We saw him do a lot of things with shooting gaps and some key tackles for losses at key times. Thought he was okay, obviously in the passing game as well too. What did he miss? One or two games due to injury last year, so he stayed fairly healthy. I think overall, when you look back at the defense last year with the Steelers, I mean, one of the most consistent players on that side of the football on a game-to-game basis. A very good, reliable tackler overall. I think that's one thing that sticks out. And I guess where I'm going with this, we'll see obviously how his remaining years go here in Pittsburgh. I don't think he'll go down as one of the most notable all-time free agent signings that the Steelers have had in, let's say, the last 20 years, but he's off to a damn good start with year one. And at this point, he gives you stability in that secondary moving forward. You get now you move into year two with him and Minka playing together. You obviously add a guy like Juan Thornhill to that safety unit that everybody hopes will be a little bit of an upgrade there. Just an all-around great find by the Steelers, and at the price they originally got him for at $3 million per year. And it's good to see the team reward players like this as
Mhm.
well too. Of hey, we had you locked up for 2 years here at a very reasonable price at $3 million, and you outplayed that 1 year, and we'd like to have you around multiple years. So I think this sends a good message, and I wrote a little bit about this yesterday as well too, that this sends a good message to the organization, especially to the 2025 free agent clash, if you will, that if you come in here and you make an impact in year one, we're not above turning around and rewarding you just 1 year into your deal.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. And you're not going to always be able to collect stars offensively, defensively. You got to find guys who are good role players that do their job well. And that is definitely Deshawn Elliott. And even before he played a snap, what I liked about the Elliott signing in free agency last year was it gave you that defined strong safety. The year before in 2023, you had a rotation between Keanu Neal, DeMonte Casey, was messy, forced Minka Fitzpatrick to play in the box more because they didn't want to put KZ there, and it just wasn't good for anybody overall. And so you got that true strong safety, that true box guy in Elliott. He did that job really well. Just to give some numbers on it, some of the things we've talked about, to put the data on it, particularly according to Pro Football Reference, he had a 2.7 missed tackle rate. That was the lowest of the 53 players last season with at least 100 tackles. Elliott had 108. PFF tied him for the top tackling grade at 90.6. And I like this stat. I know numbers can be a little funny and sample sizes, yada, yada. But in the 15 games Elliott played last year in the regular season, Pittsburgh's defense allowed 17.4 points and 88.5 rushing yards per game. In the two in which he was hurt, which you referenced earlier, Pittsburgh allowed 30.5 points per game and 175.5 rushing yards per game. That came against Philadelphia and Baltimore. So I know that's only one contributing factor, a bunch of reasons why the defense struggled in those games without Elliott, but that was certainly, his absence was one component of that, no question. So this is really, really good to get out ahead of this, to make sure that you have him and presumably Minka Fitzpatrick for the future. And knowing this team did not have great internal depth to potentially replace Elliott next year, why even think about having another need when you will have to probably find a left guard? Everyone knows the quarterback situation, receiver, corner, who knows what else will be top of the list next year. So this is a shrewd signing, and it really was last year, and it is again this year.
Yeah, I agree with everything you stated there. And now, when it comes to looking ahead to the 2026 draft, we'll see what happens. With Minka. But I mean, obviously, if you get Deshawn Elliott to play at the same level or even better than he did in 2024, it feels like at least the strong safety position will not need to be addressed early in the draft, and we'll obviously see how many picks this team ends up with overall. If you do address it at all, one would think that it would be later in the draft. So it's it's hard, it's hard not to like this signing all the way around. And once again, you're talking about just paying a guy $9.21 million in cash for 2025, and you essentially got two option years with cash earnings a little over $3 million in each of those final 2 years. So it's hard not to like this any way you look at it. And Deshawn Elliott Deshawn Elliott coming into this season had earned like what 9.5 or 9.7 million dollars for his entire NFL career. He almost will double his NFL earnings after this season here. So he's pretty ecstatic about it. He posted a couple of posts on Instagram. I think yesterday morning, being thankful to the Rooneys and the Steelers, and then obviously his agency for getting this done. And you're way out ahead of this early in the summer as well too. So now you don't go into training camp with him wondering and having to worry about, well, how will extension talks go? Will I be here beyond 2025? You just get all this out of the way overall, and the contract once again seems favorable for both sides, really.
It was a really nice post from Deshawn Elliott thanking everybody for helping him get to this point. And sometimes Elliott's social media game can be a little questionable, so it was nice to see something really positive, universally not controversial from him on social media. Other thing I like about Deshawn Elliott is that we talk so much about Pittsburgh's culture, and that can be overdone and difficult to really encapsulate, but I think Pittsburgh has tried to make a culture shift. You see them ship out Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, and Elliott's a really good culture guy. He's somebody that sets a high bar, understands the culture. I think he understood that from day one. I remember that press conference.
Yeah.
I forget the question, but he
He
pointed back to the logo.
Yeah.
Right. So he understood it. He played in the AFC, he played in Baltimore. He kind of, he got the rivalry. He got what Pittsburgh was all about, I'm sure, from afar, but he bought in right away. And during the losing streak last year, he was pissed, and he should have been. And he did probably wrongly talk about that publicly, but I understand the frustration. And he's a guy that wants everyone to succeed and expect more and want this defense to be at a high level. So you appreciate the person, you appreciate the player.
Yeah, absolutely. And how iconic. I mean, we have that photo in our collection for post and all like that of him pointing to the logo during his introductory press conference. So you can tell he obviously buys into this. He feels at home in Pittsburgh at this point, and there's no reason to think, at least as we sit here right now, that he won't play out this entire additional 2 years of his deal.
Right, still in his 20s, I believe 28 years old, just turned earlier this year. So happy with this deal every which way. Shrewd, smart move by Pittsburgh to get Elliott signed long term. To kind of go off what you had said earlier, who could be the 2025 version of Deshawn Elliott? Maybe not necessarily in terms of an extension next year, but just that underrated, unheralded free agent signing who got lost in the shuffle of the Rodgers talk and the DK Metcalf trade that comes out there and really plays above his value.
Yeah, and it was just something to kind of look at, especially at this time of year, especially on a newsy item such as Elliott's extension happening in the middle of June, if you will. Kind of looked at what kind of message does this send to per se the 2025 free agent class. And look, every year you hope that you're in this. Every year you hope that you're 1 year into 2-year deals on players at extreme low or at the lower end of the pay schedule, if you will, that you're 1 year into them having conversations about, is this a guy maybe they should extend a couple years beyond that. It doesn't always happen this way. In fact, it's been kind of a rarity of late when it comes to the Steelers, right? Normally the free agent class, you don't see them 1 year into it giving guys extensions, especially the kind where they're doubling or in Elliott's case tripling their money. But I think when you look at this year's class of kind of lower end unrestricted free agent signings, it's easy to go right to a guy like Brandin Echols, and I think the big thing with him. His path, obviously, I think will be a little bit tougher than Elliott's because when Elliott was signed, it seemed like a more defined, immediate path to a starting safety role for him right out of the chute. Whereas Brandin Echols, it's a little bit murkier, especially when you have a guy like Beanie Bishop there. And showing a little bit of promise during his rookie season there. But I think without a doubt that Echols will be given every opportunity to compete for that starting nickel job, if you will, this summer. We'll obviously sit and watch and see how that plays out. And if he does outright win that starting nickel job and goes on to have and look, winning the job isn't, and I wrote this in my post, winning the starting nickel job does not automatically put Brandin Echols as a guy that will be talking about the same time next year of getting extended. He's going to have to perform at a near or similar type level and have the impact that Deshawn Elliott had last season. But how many people would have initially thought that Elliott would have had the season that he had and made the impact that he had. So I think when you build a list of 2025 free agent signings that could potentially be in the situation that Elliott was this offseason and ultimately getting an extension, I think the list starts with Brandin Echols.
That's fair. And I do wonder what his role will be. Will it be pure backup and just quality depth? Will there be something more? I think he'll get some nickel looks this summer. I think they also want Beanie Bishop to have some sort of role at the very least, if not out an outright starting grasp on that slot job. So that's a guy to keep an eye on. I know you read about Malik Harrison, who should at the least be a core special teamer, potentially a 3-4 base inside linebacker defensively, taking on the Landon Roberts role. That's possible. We'll see how Peyton Wilson develops and how those snap counts and those snaps get divvied up. I'll give you another name. It's my terrible take topic today. Daniel Aquale. I know he signed only a 1-year deal, so he wouldn't be an extension candidate. He'd be re-signing him. But in terms of just guys overplaying their value, I think he could do that as a base rotational end, a good run stuffer, like Elliott, not flashy, not gaudy, but plays to run hard, does his job well, gives you quality, consistent snaps. I think Aquale can be that guy.
Yeah, and look, I thought about adding him out, then adding him to this post and then going through the other guys that signed the 1-year deals, but it would have made for a 3,700 word post that way there. So I kind of kept it to guys that has signed the 2-year deals this offseason here. But without a doubt, Aquale, what did they get him at? $2 million, I think, was the base with him. And you would think that he's going to be part of this rotation up front with the Steelers, especially early on in the season, as you get the rookie there up front to start mixing in and hopefully be your guy moving forward there. But with that, yeah, I think Aquale could be a guy in rotational usage, and depending on how he plays, that you do get to March and right before the start of free agency, that you go to and say, hey, let's sign you up for 2 more years at a little bit of a higher rate because we like what you did and we don't want to risk losing you during free agency.
Right now, he is older. He's already in his 30s. He's had a pretty unconventional path to the NFL, was not a full-time starter until last season, so pretty late into his career, but that's a guy I'm keeping an eye on. I don't know if we want to go down the rabbit hole. It might be too hard to do so, recording live like this, Dave, but you mentioned it earlier. Before Elliott, who was the last Steelers free agent signing to get an extension before his contract was up? I can't think of who that would be. I mean, Ogunjobi got the extension, but that was after his 1-year deal. How did that work? What happened on Ogunjobi? He signed a 1-year deal initially.
Yeah, wasn't it a 1-year deal initially with him?
Right, and then they extended him after the year.
2-year out after that. Geez. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank here. Let me think in positions. Let me run down.
Right, yeah, I mean, just the fact that nothing's coming to mind kind of tells you it probably hasn't happened in a while. Maybe we're missing a name. I'm sure somebody will say something in an email or a comment, or we'll come back Friday and have an answer for you. But need to see this more often. Need to see these shrewd role signings and even draft picks. And Pittsburgh, I think, is drafted well in the mid-rounds under Omar Khan, Nick Herbig, Mason McCormick. But those are the types of additions that really fill out a roster.
Especially when you're not having the success at the top of drafts as of late with the Steelers when it comes to extending players. Like it or not, teams need players to invest cash in year by year, right? And even though not huge, sizable, top 5 positional market value on top of it, it's always good to be building internally through the draft. First and foremost, and then extending a couple of players at the top of the draft class. And then when you get into free agency of outside ads and all, even though those are, how many times have we seen over the years that this team signs players to 2 or 3 year deals, and then 1 year, 1 year after the first year, they're gone, kind of situation. So we do need to see more of this overall. And They definitely found a good one in Deshawn Elliott, and as you say, and look, one other guy that I added to the list, and even though he was re-signing, and it's we talked about Malik Harrison. I think he has an even tougher path than, say, a Brandin Echols. But injuries, if you protect, you might be just one injury away from a guy like Malik Harrison playing 75% of the snaps in a game, right? And could he be a guy that has a season, let's say, similar to a guy like Landon Roberts did? Might he be a guy that we're talking about next offseason that we're extending? And one real dark horse, and look, it's just to kind of build out the list of names of the 2025, I guess, re-ups or outside signings that got 2 additional years. Calvin Anderson. This is a guy that only played a handful of snaps for this team at tackle last season. He wasn't even signed until, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks into last season, but he did stick on the roster once signed, and I think was an active every week except for he missed a game or two with, was it a groin or something like that?
Wasn't he put on IR?
Yeah, I think he did go on, didn't he?
I believe so.
For a handful of games there, but they thought enough of him to bring him back on a 2-year deal, albeit at a very minimal rate overall. But as we sit here right now in the middle of June, he seems to be this team's top swing tackle option. And if we'll see how the summer goes with him, if he manages to stick and manages to make the 53-man roster once again as the top swing tackle on this team, he's one snap away from potentially seeing a lot of playing time. And God forbid if that happens, but if it does happen and he does play well above the line, this could be a guy that the Steelers go to a year from now. Now, it is kind of far-fetched and out there, but I mean, if you're going to build out a list, build out the list, right? So I'm not expecting it to happen, but it would be, in essence, a good problem to have if we're talking next offseason at this time, and we're building out the come April or May, that we're building out a list of guys that the Steelers really need to think hard and long about extending during the offseason. If guys like Brandin Echols, Malik Harrison, and even a guy such as Calvin Anderson that we're talking about, hey, this team really needs to think about extending these guys.
Sure, I'm all for that if that ends up coming to pass. I know you're spitballing, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. But Anderson, I just wonder about the quality of talent and the play, and
Sure.
I haven't really seen that. He gave up a sack and a handful of snaps he played last year, I think late in that Giants game or whatever it was. But point taken, if he goes out there, has a good season now that he's settled into Pittsburgh, then that's great. I mean, not great probably because somebody got hurt, but you get the point overall. So in an offseason where there weren't going to be any other, rookies to get extended out, there really was nobody available to extend out. You can't do Porter, you can't do that class yet, and Pickett's gone, Pickens is gone. It's good to get Deshawn Elliott done. We'll see if anybody else follows. Obviously, TJ Watt's situation is likely to get done at some point. Will Calvin Austin get an extension? Will there be some reworking of the contract for Chris Boswell? Those are the contracts we'll be watching the rest of the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look in as far as probability and versus plausibility for the 3 main guys that we just went over there, Echols, Malik Harrison, and Calvin Anderson, is the plausibility there that we're talking about each one of those guys next offseason as being extension candidates? Yes, but then let's look at the probability side of it. Are we going to be talking about all 3 of them being guys that this team needs to go to and work on extensions? Probably not. I think
you're happy if you get one of those guys.
Yeah.
If somebody really blows up and has a great season, you extend one of them.
Right, and I think as we sit here right now, if we're going to rank the probability factor with the 3 of those players, I would put Echols first, Malik Harrison second, and then Calvin Anderson third. So it would be a good problem to have if we're talking at least about one of those guys being in the same situation that Deshawn Elliott was in this offseason here.
Mason Rudolph also signed a 2-year deal, but do you see a scenario in which he gets extended out? Even if Rodgers walks and Rudolph's You got Howard, I know, sitting there, but Rudolph being your top guy, probably still won't get an extension though.
I mean, the only way I see that happening is if Aaron Rodgers goes down, Mason Rudolph comes in and takes his team on a fantastical run, and you're like, hey, we can compete, and you got a lot of confidence in that, and say we're willing to tie our wagon to Mason Rudolph. But even then, I get we got to see what that looks like, or we
Sure, sure.
don't.
Yeah,
But yeah, I wouldn't count on that happening there. Now, obviously, on the heels of this Deshawn Elliott and with the Watt thing, still waiting to see what happens there, and we're both really convinced that they'll get something done with T.J. Watt at some point this summer. There, a lot of people are circling back to what's going to happen with Calvin Austin, and could Calvin Austin potentially be the next guy up here? I still don't like the probability of that happening. Is there a plausibility of it happening? Sure. Could they make it work from a cash and a cap standpoint? Yes. If you could sign Calvin Austin to the exact same deal that Deshawn Elliott just signed, would you do it?
that's a good question.
You
Probably.
would take him from earning $1.1 million in cash this year up to $9.12 million. So you're talking about an $8 million raise. You're talking about taking this cap hit up to you'd be using another 3 point. Actually no, a little bit more than that. It'd be 5 point something $1 million in cap space if you're to get him to a 2-year extension, and then make his base salaries the same and all like that. And essentially it being a 1-year deal for $9.12 million with 2 option years attached. Would that, I think you would as a team sign up for that
I would do that.
if you could get it done. I think the question would be, would it be enough to entice? Would an $8 million raise in 2025 be enough to entice Calvin Austin to do it?
Right, that's a fair question. It's one reason why I think a deal won't get done, because I think Austin would rather just play out the year, seeing the starting opportunity there, the chance to have another good season, build upon 2024, and then get paid even more. But in hypothetical, if I could wave a magic wand and get him to agree to that deal, identical to Elliott's, I would.
Yeah, I would if you could get him to accept the exact same deal. And normally, as we've seen in the past, the Steelers like to kind of rubber stamp some of these, right? Duplicate them, if you will.
Hmm.
So I would imagine I can't see the deal being any more than what you signed Deshawn Elliott to. I mean, remember, we're talking about a new money average of 6.25 million. And if you look at the wide receiver APY chart, if you signed him to a $6.25 million new money average, you're talking a little less. It would slot him right between a Jawan Jennings and Rashad Bateman, which on the surface seems kind of fair.
Yeah, compared to those two very productive receivers, sure.
But in totality, you're looking at him being, I don't know, what would it be, 40, 45th, 50th overall on the on the wide receiver pay scale. So I think I once again, if you're the Steelers and if you could get him to take the same kind of deal that Deshawn Elliott took, I think you do it, because you got a little bit of cash extra to spend this off season. You're rewarding a player for taking a step forward last season. You don't have a lot of liability out there in seasons past 2025. So I think you throw that contract at him and say, look, just see what Deshawn Elliott signed. Are you willing to take it? I'm just not convinced that it would be enough to twist his arm.
Agreed, but you offer it. If you're Pittsburgh, I
Sure.
think you offer it and just see. If he says no, then great, that's fine. But I think you offer it and see if he bites, quote unquote.
Yeah. And once again, from From a cap perspective, it's easy to cover because assuming they do get TJ Watt signed at some point during this offseason, his cap number should decrease by $8 or $9 million there, assuming you get something money pushed forward for Chris Boswell, which I really think will happen here at some point. You're talking about an additional, I don't know, $3 million in cash there, and maybe a couple million more in cap space potentially that way there. So you can make it all work there. But I would be surprised if you offered him more than what Deshawn Elliott just got. But I most definitely would take that contract to him and his agent, say, look, your client has an opportunity to make $8 million more this season, and more than likely will hang around, 2 additional seasons after that and pocket another $6.25 million over those 2 years on top of it. So you're talking about, hey, over the course of the next 3 years, your client can earn $15.5 million. But is that enough to tempt him to stay away from free agency next offseason?
Sure, point taken. So the Elliott deal is done. We'll maybe have some contract details a little more particular for Friday's show. Whenever that comes in, we'll certainly talk about it. But happy to see that deal get done. It also gives us something to discuss on this otherwise pretty empty Wednesday show. So win-win all around. Dave, I don't know how much time we should spend on this topic because frankly, I don't really understand it and I don't really know what to make of it. Didn't mention this on Monday's show. I think this commentary came. Actually, I think it came. When did it happen? Over the weekend, I guess it would have been before the Monday show. But Tom Pelissero from NFL Network was on Rich Eisen, just casually talking about the TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson situation, just the edge market in general, and made a reference to Mike Tomlin being year to year. And that caught Eisen's attention, as it should, and was asked to follow up on that. And Pelissero, here's the initial comment. He says, quote, referring to Pittsburgh, they're in win now mode as they are every year with Mike Tomlin, who himself is at least somewhat on a year-to-year basis as he enters his 19th season as the Steelers head coach. He goes on to say later on, does Mike Tomlin say at some point, do I need to do something different? Now, Pelissero says that the Rooney family has no intention of trading Mike Tomlin, of not firing Mike Tomlin. And so I really don't know what to make of these comments. Pelissero says he calls him year to year, or believes him. He's year to year in the sense of there's always trade rumors about him. There's always some discussion about him. He's also obviously, the longest tenured coach, not just in the NFL, but American professional sports. What do you make of this? This felt a bit strange from Pelissero, a respected insider. What are your thoughts?
Feels more speculatory than anything else, I think. When did this latest extension with Tomlin run through?
2027. So he's coaching for at least then, which to me, by definition, does not make him year to year.
And I think he tries to throw out there there is not a lot of precedent in the modern NFL. Bill Belichick aside for somebody going on 20 years with one team. Well, just because, there's always exceptions to the rule. And yes, it is strange for a coach in today's NFL to stay that long. And obviously if Tomlin's right there is coming. How many years was Cowher in Pittsburgh?
I believe 15, 90.
Right.
Oh God, what was it? 92 to 06.
And how long was Noel?
69 to 91. 23. Does that sound right?
Yeah. So, I mean, even where he's at right now, he hasn't reached Noel, years. So at least it's not kind of unprecedented when it comes to the Steelers organization. The comments that he used were just kind of still vague overall, I thought.
It was all over the place. He, on one hand, talks about his commentary of year to year comes from all the trade rumors and speculation, but on the other hand, he says they're not trading him, they're not firing him. So then it's just a media fodder, and all that trade rumor stuff. I know Chicago inquired, Pittsburgh immediately shut that down. It's all media fodder. It's not happening. Mike Tomlin's not getting traded. Head coaches don't get traded, not ones who are actively coaching for their team, putting the Sean Paytons aside. The last head coach to actively be coaching for a team and then getting dealt was Herm Edwards in 2006. It gets talked about so much. It's all bark. It's not bite. So Tomlin's coaching through at least 2027. He's talked about he has no interest in doing anything else. He's pushed back on, narratives and storylines about his future in the past. He says he loves to coach. He signed the extension. I don't know where Pelissero was coming from. You're right. This was a lot of speculation for a guy that's usually a pretty airtight reporter.
If I remember correctly, we had conversations in the Discord channel as what was he trying to say here, right?
Right, even just trying to figure out his point. Now, maybe what happened was he had just kind of casually in passing called Tomlin year to year, which he did, and then tried to expand upon that, maybe realized that was poor wording to use and just couldn't really talk his way out of it. I don't know, but just wanted to mention that because it's kind of the first time we've heard the national media, a reporter like Pelissero, even talk about Tomlin's future in the sense of year to year and that kind of commentary. So I wanted to just run it by you.
It was tough to even write a lead on that, right?
Yeah, we had a heck of a time trying to figure out how to frame that properly, and yeah, but Tomlin's coaching in 2025. I'll assume he coaches in 2026 and 2027, and Pelissero himself even admitted Tomlin will likely go out on his own terms, as Noel did, as Coward did. It is unlikely to ever be a result of Tomlin being fired. That'll rankle some Steelers fans, but that's the most likely outcome, right or wrong.
If Jay Glazer had used the same words here, I would be tempted to parse them out word by word a little bit more. But I do wonder of how much Tom Pelissero actually knows about Mike Tomlin's plans.
That was the thing. When a reporter says that, does he know something, but he just can't actually really say it, and so he has to frame it as more speculation than report? You always wonder what these guys aren't able to report, either because they can't confirm or it's off the record and that kind of stuff. That's another reason why we wrote about it, was when a reporter says something like that, you wonder, is there something in his back pocket? But again, I don't see any evidence of that. Pelissero didn't claim any evidence of that. Tomlin signed the extension, so I assume he's here through 2027 and likely beyond.
What we need now is we need Mike Tomlin to join his good buddy Rich Eisen on his show for one of those 20-minute interviews, and for Rich Eisen to throw back what Tom Pelissero said.
Yeah, that would be nice. I'm sure Tomlin would dismiss that out of hand no matter what. But, you do wonder, is he going to go the path of Noel and Cowher and step down whenever he wants to? If not, what does an eventual exit of Mike Tomlin look like?
There is a beginning and an end for everything. It's still, even this far into Mike Tomlin's tenure, it's still hard to, especially with his age, especially with how excited he seems to be about the actual process. And this guy still loves what he does. He loves the human aspect of it as well, too. I don't think he's close to being tired of any aspect of what he does. And he's obviously got his kids growing up and on into college and beyond at this point. Now, before you get to 70, you probably want to start doing some other things in life, right? Seeing the world or whatever. I don't know, but who knows? In Tom, this thing will come. I am confident in saying at one point Mike Tomlin will no longer be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's a bold take.
I know it's kind of out there, but in my head, I still can't envision when and how and what that will look like, to be quite honest with you. And I mean, especially for a guy that, and look, the 2016 thing will forever be out there, or will be out there until it's potentially not. The
2016?
Yeah, the 2016, the last time the team,
the playoff game. Okay,
right.
Gotcha. I was late on the draw there. My bad.
The consecutive banners of non-losing seasons will be something that will be further discussed. Look, one playoff win. If this team gets a playoff win in this season, how much of this will go away?
A lot of it from the national media side of it, for sure. But if they don't, like this, is there a scenario in which Tomlin gets fired? I have a hard time believing it on the contract he's on right now.
I would think it would have to envision. I envision it something being 4-13.
I think it's about losing the locker room, and that's what Rooney has talked about. The players still have his ear. They're still buying in. As long as they do that, we see the report card from the NFLPA. Tomlin gets the highest marks of anything about the organization. So as long as that sticks, I think Tomlin will too. Right or wrong, I'm just giving you my opinion of
Right.
how it'll actually play out. I don't see Rooney firing a guy on a $50 million contract and having to pay that really at any point. So the two ways a coach can exit is you get fired or you retire, you step down. And usually it's getting fired. In Pittsburgh, it's been stepping down. I don't know if there's a scenario in which Tomlin gets fired. I mean, the other way is your contract expires, I guess, but that is very rare in the NFL. It happened to Dallas last year and Mike McCarthy. But would the Steelers ever put Mike Tomlin in lame duck status and go into a contract year? They haven't, and most teams don't for a good reason to have security. And so prospective free agents can sit there and say, my head coach is under contract for more than 1 year. But is that a scenario which that could ever take place down the road?
All right. Now, when did we say his current contract expires?
I believe it's through the 2027 season. I can double check that just to make sure, but I looked that up during writing that article. I believe that's what the team announced.
All right. Yeah, you've got 2027 here. Let's talk about we're going to be talking about the defense today anyway. This defense, and let's assume TJ Watt signs on for 4 more years, and obviously you got the. I guess what I'm getting at is in a few more years, or at least by by the end of the 2027 season. What's the metamorphosis of this defense going to be as far as those star players?
Cam Hayward probably retired. He's got through 2026, I believe. We'll see about Watt and Minka, but I think you'll be going into that transitional phase of your stars are aging out and either older or gone, and your defense is trying to rebuild the way the offense has been looking to rebuild with high draft picks the last couple seasons.
Right. And who tends to be starting the 2028 or after the 2027 season ends, who is your best bet to be that star potential all-pro, Pro Bowl, NFL Network top 30 players? That's coming up, by the way. Are you looking forward to that? Who currently on this roster best fits? Name me 2 players that come after the 2027 season that best fit those kind of players on the defensive side of football.
For the 2028 season?
Right.
Obviously, big projection there, but I'll say Joey Porter Jr. and Derek Harmon.
Right. And there's a lot of ifs in there, right?
Of course, of course.
All right. So could 2027 be after the 2027 season? Is that the most likely time that the Steelers start going in a different direction, head coach and
Won't Tomlin get an extension before the season?
I mean, he could.
That's how they've done it every year. I mean, because
Right.
you rarely see coaches get put in lame duck status. How many can you count? McCarthy's one. I can't think of another coach in recent memory that was in that situation because you don't want to have. Go ahead.
If he still, let's say he at least has kicked in the door of getting a playoff win by then, but not gone any further than that.
I think it all comes back to the locker room, and does that message, has it run stale, for lack of a better phrase? And that's the benchmark I think Rooney evaluates Mike Tomlin overall. And I know obviously most coaches, they don't get put in lame duck status, they get extensions, but the other franchises are willing to fire a coach, and I'm not sure if Rooney is at current time.
I'll leave you with this. I in my head, if you ask me when do I think when is the best shot of the Mike Tomlin era ending, it would be after the 2027 season. And that's
I'm not convinced it is.
Okay. I mean, I'm just you kind of asked me to read the tea leaves here,
Mhm.
and I mean, if it were to happen, I would think that would obviously be the time.
Unless it was him stepping down. If Tomlin says, "I've coached for now 20 plus years, I'm going to go do something else."
And maybe that's a little bit where Pelissero's kind of angling this is maybe Tomlin won't want to sign an extension.
Right, right. Or go truly year to year, the way Kevin Colbert went year to year. I don't know if we knew exactly what happened contractually on that. I don't think we did, but he explicitly said he was going year to year those final couple of seasons as Pittsburgh's GM.
I think, and we wouldn't be talking about this if Pelissero didn't frame his words the way kind of that he did. But if Rich Eisen would have probably nailed him down a little bit harder on what do you mean? What exactly do you mean? You know, maybe.
I mean, I think Eisen pushed back. I think Pelissero just talked in a lot of generalities, and his rationale did not make a lot of sense. The other thing to consider in terms of the future is Art Rooney II will not be the owner and president of this team forever.
Right.
There's even some questions about how much longer he'll be in his current role for. Whenever that succession occurs, who knows exactly when that is. You have somebody else different now evaluating. We believe it's going to be, I'm not even sure how they're referring to him, Daniel Martin Rooney, Dan Rooney. I don't know. I don't know what he's going by these days, but could that signal a change whenever some new evaluator takes over, some new owner takes over, essentially?
All right, let me leave you with this. It's 2030.
You're just going into the future more and more.
2030. It's June 18th, 2030. How old will I be then? Damn. Over 60? Yeah. Will Mike Tomlin still be the Steelers head coach on June the 18th, 2030? Everybody save this episode now for for 2030. Will Mike Tomlin still be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2030 on June the 18th?
I'll say yes.
I'll say no.
Okay. Fair enough.
And we will forget this show even existed if I'm wrong.
But if you're right, in 5 years from now, we'll have a conversation.
Right.
You and I.
How old will you be on June 18th, 2030?
I don't want to think about that. I'll be an old man. I'll be 60 like you, Dave, in spirit.
No, you won't be that old. In spirit, you will be. You're already there.
I'm already there. Yeah. Fair.
All right. We filled 15 minutes there.
Let's go to our exercise. We started on Monday and go to the defensive side of the ball. Did Pittsburgh get better, worse, or the same at each position group? Starting with the defensive line, some big changes here. Larry Ogunjobi cut. They draft heavy on defensive line. Obviously, Derek Carmen in the first round. Y.A. Black later on in the draft. You get a Quale. You bring back Loudermilk. This defensive line room, Dave, better, worse, the same?
All right. I think we had a lot of questions a year ago about what Larry Ogunjobi would be. We had questions about the next step for Keanu Benton. Questions about if Cameron Hayward could continue to kick the ass of one Father Time. We saw Ogunjobi definitely not be the player people hoped that he would be. Benton left things on the table. He didn't take the kind of step that I think most people wanted him to take. So now becomes a very, very crucial year for him. Out the door goes guys like Montravius Adams. Obviously, Larry Ogunjobi gone now. You invest heavily at the top of the draft in Derek Harmon. You got, who is and what is DeMarvin Leal at this point? You do have a guy in Quality coming in that, let's be quite honest, it's more projection with him at this point. Dean Lowry obviously isn't the answer. Isaiah Loudermilk's coming back in potentially as a fill-in role. You still don't know what the ceiling is on a Logan Lee. I'm going to have my fingers crossed with Benton take a step forward and with Harmon making some sort of impact, at least giving you more than what Ogunjobi did last season. So I'm going to say slightly better.
I will too. And certainly it better be better with everything invested and the importance for this defensive line and front seven to play well. You get a really talented player in Harmon. I know he's sight unseen in the NFL, but we love the state at Oregon. We love the traits, the skill set, the fit in the system. Benton another year in. It's, as you said, big year for him. The sack production has to go up. Carl Dunbar, the D-line coach, admitted to that and openly expressed that. I talked about I like the Equale signing. The guys that are, that's your 1 through 4 with Hayward still being Cam Hayward. Behind that, there's certainly questions. Backup nose tackle. Where will YA Black play? Who else will fill in this roster? Loudermilk, Lowry, Leal, the L team that was on roster last year, and the impacts were minimal. Lowry was inactive by year's end. Leal has a neck injury. Loudermilk had the staying power, but his play, he is just basically who he is overall. But I do think this unit did get better.
Slightly better?
I'm not sure really how to couch it. I mean, some of this will obviously be dependent on a rookie like Harmon.
Right.
I mean, I think, Ogunjobi struggled last year, and his game always ran hot and cold, and it certainly that certainly stayed true last year. So you could have a real big jump there if Harmon can be who Pittsburgh thinks he will be, going from Ogunjobi to Harmon.
I mean, it's hard to add degrees of better, right? But let's say coming out of the season, we're saying, well, the defensive line was slightly better than it was in 2024. Will slightly better be good enough?
No, I think it's going to be more than slightly better.
Considerably better?
Like when the eye doctor right now.
Yeah,
He was just there a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I think a confident better is what you're looking for.
Okay.
Doesn't mean it has to be this amazing jump. You'd love it to be, but you just want to sit there and say it got better.
Are you there?
That'd be my answer right now. Yeah, I think it got better. I do.
Okay.
From depth and from Harmon. Now, young guys have to prove it. Obviously, there's a lot riding on Benton and Harmon, and Hayward himself still has to battle Father Time each year. What he's doing right now is what he did last year, something that I think was a historically strong season. You rarely see an interior defensive lineman have the production that he had. And can he do it again? I think he can, but he is another year older.
What happens if, God forbid, Cameron Hayward misses some time?
Yeah, there's going to be trouble. Then you better hope that Benton and Harmon are playing to the top of their game. And then you have Equale, who I think can fill in as a run-stuffing defensive end. But there'll be a lot on young guys' shoulders if that does occur with Hayward.
All right, my end response here is slightly better. Obviously, hoping for considerably better, but better nonetheless.
Outside linebacker, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig all return. The big addition here is Jack Sawyer, drafted in the 4th round. Better, worse, the same?
Without a doubt, in my head, better. I think I am probably more bullish on Jack Sawyer than most. Obviously, I don't want to have to see him play 500, 600 snaps during his rookie season. But I think that he adds a good quality depth player that can play some snaps right out of the chute in sort of a rotational role, specifically on the left side. If everybody stays healthy overall, I like this room more so than I did, I think, even though 3 of them are the same. If they, there were the injury issues last year, but I think who was number 4 last year?
At the start of last year, which is how I view the comparison, it was Jeremiah Moon. He had gotten hurt, but going into camp initially, I can't think actually the week 1 roster who was number 4. I don't know if they had added any of the outside guys at that point, Leota, etc.
And Preston Smith didn't come along until the trade deadline.
Right. So who was the number 4? Did they even have a number 4 outside linebacker on the 53 when they played the season opener last year?
Let's go back to
Atlanta.
The archives here for the start of the season last year. Who was there? It was obviously Highsmith, Watt, Kyron Johnson. Ooh.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, they're better. We were talking about going into the season. Obviously David Perales got hurt right at the off the top there. We were excited about Jeremiah Moon more because more of maybe some potential pass rush, occasional usage there and special teams play. I think we're above that. I Jack Sawyer versus any of these guys as number 4 to me is an upgrade. So for me it's easily calling this a better room.
It is, but I'll use your phrase for the D-line slightly better because your top 3 are the same. The number 4, if everyone is healthy, it's not going to make a dramatic impact. It's going to be 5-10 snaps a game. I don't want to dismiss that completely, but it is the number 4 outside linebacker whose primary role will be on special teams. So I would say slightly better.
Okay.
Inside linebacker, some changes here. Landon Roberts, he goes to Vegas. The team brings in Malik Harrison. They draft Carson Bruner in the 7th round. Of course, you have Peyton Wilson, Patrick Queen, Cole Holcomb takes another pay cut to stick around. Had Mark Robinson last year for his rookie deal as well. Better, worse, the same at inside linebacker.
Boy, God bless our lads for having archived depth charts.
They're a great service.
Yeah. Don't you sit in with them every once in a while on a podcast or something?
I do with Greg. Yeah, we're good friends with our lads.
All right. Yeah. Get on by our lads and tell them Steelers Depot sent you. They've got a great feature in there in their depth charts where you can go by the archive dates and roll back. A very useful tool overall there. Let's see. Going into the season last year, Landon Roberts, Patrick Queen, Cole Holcomb, who ended up being on PUP, Peyton Wilson as a rookie, Mark Robinson, Tyler Matakevich, and the unforgettable Tyler Murray. And I guess Jacoby Wyndham was a undrafted rookie free agent at heading into cuts and all like that as well too. Look, you got Peyton Wilson cut his teeth during his rookie season, gave you some promise there. You didn't. Tyler Matakevich was on the depth chart, but you hope to never see him play. The same really per se for Mark Robinson. Cole Holcomb obviously is back healthy now. You do miss some elements that a Landon Roberts gave you on a defensive side of football, but you hope you get those same elements with Malik Harrison. I'm going to say better.
I want to say better, too, because of the progression of Patrick Queen, year 2 in the system, and especially for Peyton Wilson, year 2 in the NFL. I did think Pittsburgh had a downgrade going from Roberts to Harrison, at least as a defensive player. Now, Harrison is going to offer more special teams value, and that could be one reason why the team made the switch. But looking at it pure defensively, I think Pittsburgh got worse there.
Okay.
In that standpoint, going from Roberts to Harrison, do you agree, disagree in that transaction?
Let me tell you, Roberts gave you an element against, as a downhill player that was it's hard that was hard to ignore last year.
And Harrison's calling card is run defense too, but to me, not the degree that Roberts plays to run. I thought he played. Nobody blew up pullers the way that Landon Roberts did. Nobody set the tone like Landon Roberts did. I didn't see that as consistently and as intensely on tape from Harrison. So overall, better or worse just on that transaction alone from Roberts to Harrison?
Yeah, I would say, not Malik's got a lot to show to be at least an equal to that. So yeah, I would say for the 1-for-1 there, yeah, not as good. But I think as a room as a whole, they're better.
Yeah, I'll still go that way too, because I think the maturation of Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen, hopefully getting his legs under him. He has to be able, though, he has to prove that he can wear the green dot and play well. That has been the concern with Patrick Queen. Was a problem in Baltimore. He became a better player once they traded for Roquan Smith, and Smith assumed the green dot duties. That was a conversation point we had when Pittsburgh signed Patrick Queen last year, and it was an issue during the year. It felt like there were communication problems, and Queen did not play at his best, and so he has to be able to do both.
Look, as we've talked a few times, this team's got to be better up the spine, right?
100%, no question.
And that means your interior defensive linemen and your inside linebackers filtering all the way down through the middle of the field safeties.
All right, let's go to cornerback now. Darius Slay, the big addition. Dante Jackson leaves for the Chargers. The Brandin Echols signing you mentioned earlier. Draft Dante Kent in the 7th round. Of course, still have Porter, Trice, etc. James Pierre brought back for special teams value. Cornerback room day, better, worse, the same.
Do you remember going into training camp in the season, we were talking about who's going to win the nickel, Graylin Arnold, Beanie Bishop, or Thomas Graham Jr.?
And Josiah Scott was there.
Yeah, Josiah Scott, I think, for up until, look, Slay for Dante Jackson, I'll take that as an upgrade.
Agreed.
I like the fact that Beanie, I like the setup of Beanie versus Echols, at least as giving you probably a little bit more. Whoever wins that out of the chute should make you a slightly better team there, I would think. And let's see. You obviously want to see Corey Trice Jr. at least stay healthy to get a sense of what he can do. We both agree that we don't want to see James Pierre on the field, but at least he does have snaps there and a little bit of experience. I'm going to go better there in that room.
I'm going to say better, too. Better depth with Echols. Bishop in his 2nd year, no longer the wide-eyed rookie. An upgrade, I'm with you. From Jackson to Slay. Porter, another year in. Trice, another year in. Hopefully healthy, but full go. Instead of last year, which was still some recovery and the team easing him in during training camp. Pierre, no longer kind of next man up defensively, which always concerned me. He's now where he should be, back of the roster. Valuable role on special teams as a gunner. But that's going to be his home. So, and Dante Kent, we'll see what he can do as well. So I'll say better and pretty clearly better, I think.
All right.
And then finally, safety. No huge changes here. Still, Minka Fitzpatrick, Elliott on the extension. Miles Killebrew, of course. The big addition here is Juan Thornhill signed to that 1-year deal, replacing DeMonte Casey, who remains a free agent. I should have said better. I should have said better. Play my right game here. Better, worse, the same at safety.
Unchanged until we see if Minka can get back to being Minka, doing Minka things. I say.
So from Casey to Thornhill, do you see that as no change? That is the change of the group.
Yeah, I got to see it. I got to see something that I can at least say, other than what his tape so far, in the NFL. To me, it just feels unchanged until I get a reason to go other than that.
I mean, I do think Thornhill is better than Casey. I didn't love the Thornhill signing. He's had some injury issues. His time in Cleveland was pretty bumpy, but is he better than Casey? Marginally, I think. But overall, the group is the group. So I will say the same, because it didn't get quite to saying that better level, because generally the group is the group and it hasn't changed dramatically.
Right. I mean, you obviously don't want to see Miles Killebrew out there play a lot of snaps. He's a more a special teamer than anything. I think, the big question with this group is Thornhill a considerable upgrade over Casey?
Now, you could sit there and say Elliott in his 2nd year, the continuity will be valuable, and that can hopefully get this group to move forward. You could argue that as a reason to say better. So if you maybe choose, better or worse, it did not get worse. It got better, but I don't know if the Thornhill change is big enough to really, truly sit there and say it got better. I think the group is,
right.
Your starters are your starters. I don't think Thornhill, he'll have a role in big nickel packages, and so maybe there'll be some value in some defensive snaps there. Obviously, somebody gets hurt, he could fit in. But overall, he'll be more of a backup than anything.
Right.
And then special teams, we got to show special teams some love, at least the specialists. You have Boswell, Johnston, and Waitman, a punter, will be interesting. And then Kuntz at long snapper. Better, worse, the same for these specialists.
You obviously hope Cameron Johnston bounces back from the injury and gives you a look. It wasn't like Waitman was awful last year, but just merely having a guy that you tied your wagon to in Cameron Johnston, thinking that was going to be your guy, and in a limited time, it looked like he was going to be that guy, and now getting him back, I'm going to say slightly better.
I'll say the same because if Johnson does replace Waitman, I think the production will be pretty similar. I thought Waitman, as you said, punted well last year, but it's a good group overall. Boswell, that amazing 2024 season. Kuntz did just fine at long snapper, so better, but or I should say the same, but that's okay.
All right, and you're probably going to have Calvin Austin returning punts. Can the kick return unit be any worse?
It's a low bar they've set. They were literally last in kick return average last season, so nowhere to go but up. But who's going to fill those roles? Gainwell, one returner. Who else will get a look? It's hard to say.
Yeah, we'll have to see how your reporting goes about during camp and all.
I didn't tally it up, Dave, but over these last two podcasts, I don't think we called one position group worse than last year's. I think we said better for most, I believe, and the same for a handful. So does that feel right?
Do we have? Is this a life springs eternal? We've got our fanboy glasses on too tight.
I had that thought. Now, this does assume, obviously, health hasn't impacted things, and injuries can wreck a group and turn it from looking better to much worse in a hurry. And so that's one reason why I think, in general, you're more optimistic this year because everyone's healthy. We're thinking about the best of players. They haven't gone against anybody, that kind of stuff. But yeah, had you told me this before we started this exercise Monday, I'd be surprised probably to say that I said better for as many groups as I did. But you look at it individually, and where can you say they got worse? Where can you say they didn't make some strides? The roster had big time turnover, a lot of changes there, so there was not much stagnation for it to be the same. It was a lot of, the group will be either better or worse, and there were upgrades for sure.
When we look at the defensive unit overall, which position group has the biggest question mark about them?
I think the defensive line, with how important it is to this team. Pittsburgh has won with some shakier secondaries in the past when you have really good run defense and a really strong pass rush. And, Pittsburgh has to have that defensive line reach their potential. Benton, for the reasons we mentioned, Harmon, obviously, and then depth behind is a little shaky, and you still are putting a lot on the plate of a 36-year-old Cam Hayward. So defensive line is the group that gives me the most amount of pause.
That's exactly where I was going to go for all the same reasons.
And corner isn't amazing, but I think it will be better. And if your run defense is strong and your pass rush is doing more than the 40 sacks they had last year, was it 40 sacks last year? I don't know how many sacks they had last season, but if your pass rush is stronger overall, then that will, to some degree, mask the cornerback play.
Look, Cameron Hayward has to stay healthy and give you a lot of what he gave you last year. Keanu Benton's got to take that next step, and more than anything, he's got to, and you hear Dunbar talk about it, it's not hard to envision what way Keanu Benton's got to get better against the run, and he's got to finish plays when rushing the passer.
Agreed, and it was 40 sacks last year. Just rare for Pittsburgh to be that low, so it sounds funny even saying it. But the stat I've mentioned a couple times, Dave, Hayward aside, the Steelers' collective defensive line had 4.5 sacks last year. That is not good enough. That must improve. I don't know exactly what number they need to get to, but it has to be a whole lot more than 4.5. You can't put it all on Cam Hayward.
Exactly. Good point.
All right, Dave, that wraps things up. So let us know your thoughts on better, worse, or the same for the Pittsburgh Steelers position groups. And even if you do argue that they got better, as Dave and I did, does that automatically mean they're going to win 11 games in a playoff game? Other teams got better too. It's a tough division, tough AFC. So those are also things to consider.
Agreed.
All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Let's go to Daniel here. Daniel RC. Dear Dave and Alex, I know it's fruitless to go down all the what if rabbit holes, but this time of year seems like a good of time as any just for the sake of having something to talk about. Do you think if Justin Fields had pulled off the comeback versus the Colts and had us at 5-1, Coach Tomlin would have still gone rogue and replaced him with Russ? Part of me thinks that might have been the threshold, but I also think Tomlin was really itching to get Russ in there no matter what. Again, I know it doesn't change anything thinking about the what ifs, but that's a real turning point in the Steelers' fortunes of the past 6 months or so. So, what if Justin Fields on that final drive pulls out the victory against the Colts? Who's the starter the next week? And What path does Tomlin just say, I'm going rogue, or does he just go, Justin Fields is our starter this next game, and then we'll see how it plays out from there?
Well, I mean, he started after the Colts game, but yeah, whenever Russ came back healthy, um, I think Tomlin would have made the switch. I think he would have gone back to Russ. The reason that he changed it out was not because of the record. It wasn't because Pittsburgh had a poor record. It was the offense not producing enough. And yeah, I know if you beat the Colts, you score another touchdown, but the offense overall was still not putting up big numbers. And that Raiders game in particular, Fields really struggled, even though Pittsburgh had 32 points, I think, in that game. But Fields' individual play was at his worst performance of the season, even worse than the Colts game. So I still think Tomlin would have made the change because I think he wanted to boost the offense and see what the offense could do with Russell Wilson.
I guess a bigger if would have been what if the Steelers beat the Cowboys, right?
Right, which they were one play away from doing. But I guess from that standpoint, Fields is not necessarily actively doing anything to secure that win. The defense is getting a stop to beat the Colts that would have required a 2-minute drill type of comeback.
Right, but I mean, could have done more during the Dallas game. I guess I mean, if you're going to go down one, what if then? But I understand where he's come from. I think Tomlin was dead set at getting Russell Wilson in this thing, barring just Justin Fields being spectacular.
Right, I think that was the agreement. That was the thought initially. Obviously, Russell Wilson was brought in to start, and I think that was a conversation and not a guarantee, but understood kind of commitment that the two had whenever the signing occurred, and Tomlin wanted to give Russell Wilson that chance. So relitigating it is obviously fruitless. I know the reader understands that, but is there anything Fields could have done, or was he just going to the bench no matter what? What if the team was undefeated? What if they were 6-0 and they beat the Colts, they beat the Cowboys, and Russ is cleared? Does Fields really get benched in that scenario?
Let me tell you, it's hard to bench a quarterback when you're undefeated. It's hard to explain that.
Right. I think that would have been maybe the one scenario in which Fields is not going to be replaced had Pittsburgh been 6-0.
I
They
mean,
probably would have just said, "Well, Russ still isn't quite there yet, guys. He's still not there for
yeah.
the Jets game. We're going to rehab him a little bit longer and kind of just use that as a." That's what they used the whole time. They had it was a whole wait and see. Russ could have played weeks earlier, before he did. If Fields had come out and the team was awful and Fields was thinking it up, Russ would have played by probably week 3, week 4. They were winning, and so it was buying them time to make a decision and give Russell Wilson additional time to fully heal.
Agreed. All right, Derek Dimmy from Wheeling, West Virginia is in here. He's been in here before. I need your help. How excited should I be that the Pittsburgh Steelers signed Aaron Rodgers? Last year, I really bought into Russell Wilson hype. I thought adding a Super Bowl winning quarterback to this roster with this defense was really going to get us over the hump and win us our first playoff game since 2016 and maybe even more. And yet Pittsburgh finished 10-7 and was ousted in the first round of the playoffs as usual. I obviously drank way too much of the Kool-Aid. Fast forward a year. Now we have another quarterback in Rodgers who has also won a Super Bowl and the same star-studded defense. Do I buy into the hype again this year, or should I be more cautious as I got burned last year with Wilson under center? Should I get my Kool-Aid ready, he says. So he's asking whether or not he should live in his fears, I guess, right? I would be not doing Derek a service by telling him to go out and get discount bags of Kool-Aid. I would be cautiously optimistic, and I know that's not what people want to hear, but look, we had this. Are we glad or sad that the Steelers signed Aaron Rodgers exercise with me and Alex and all like that? I'm more on the glad side. I am intrigued by getting a guy that's played the amount of football that he's played. I obviously have questions about the weapons on offense and whether or not the offensive line will take the next step and all like that. It does feel like a lot of things outside of just the Aaron Rodgers being on the back of the jersey need to go right for this offense and all like that, for this team to get further than a 10-7 and one win in the playoffs kind of thing. All I will tell you, Derek Demi, is that I am cautiously optimistic. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but that's where I'm at right now.
What do you think people want to hear? Do you think they want to hear Super Bowl, this is going to change the team, or do you want to hear this is a mistake, Pittsburgh is screwing this up by pursuing Rodgers?
I mean, I think the fan and everybody, me and you included, want to think, okay, this is Aaron freaking Rodgers.
There are some that say that they should tank and have a bad season and get a top pick and draft a quarterback. And so I think that's a growing sentiment. Not saying it's correct, but that is a sentiment among the fan base.
But in those same fan base, heart of hearts, they're waking up every Sunday and putting their jerseys on and thinking this is the year, right? I mean, even though
I'm not sure.
I mean,
majority, they're watching, but some sit there and say we've had this song and dance before. Aaron Rodgers is extending the stagnation of the team. I think is a thought.
Okay.
Where they're going to win 10 games, they're going to be in the hunt. They're going to pick 21st overall. It's going to be that much harder to find a quarterback. I think that is a thought, and it's not an unreasonable thought.
If you were to poll 100 Yinzers on the street of Pittsburgh, the majority of them are going to be we got Aaron freaking Rodgers. Yeah, I think this team can finally get over the hump and win more than one playoff game.
To give the Family Feud answer, yes, I think survey says that if you polled, and not just online commentary, but if you poll 100 Steeler fans, what their thoughts are on Aaron Rodgers, more would be excited than disappointed by it. I agree.
Right.
But there is a segment that will sit there and say that this is the wrong move, either because Rodgers is, they think, a cancer or too much baggage, or because Pittsburgh will end up and remain in football purgatory.
Sure. So what are you telling Derek Demi?
I don't like to tell people really how to feel, because I barely even know how I feel about the move. I guess I'm a little less excited about it than you are from the conversation we had. Are you happy or sad? The pass-fail conversation we had a couple episodes ago. It's all wait and see to me. I mean, I think Pittsburgh will basically be where they've been. It really seems to be the only place they know where to go is to win 9-10 games, be in the hunt, be competitive. Can they win a playoff game? Yeah, they can win a playoff game. Can they do anything more than that? I'm skeptical of that, but I think they're generally in the same place they have been. And when it comes to what will really determine the success of this team, the offensive line, I think it's really going to be the big driver that should really be getting a lot more of the focus. By the way, you said the off-brand Kool-Aid? That is apparently Flavor Aid is the off-brand version.
we had that, Kool-Aid. I think. We had, oh yeah. You're not old enough to remember Winn-Dixie, I don't think. Do you know what a Winn-Dixie even is?
I've heard the term. I couldn't tell you what it is, though.
Winn-Dixie was a popular grocery store chain. I think there's still a couple of them down there in the South and all like that and all. But they had a brand of cola called Czech Cola. So we couldn't afford Coca-Cola. We had to drink Czech Cola, and we had to drink off-brand Kool-Aids and all like that, even though Kool-Aid was 15 cents or 10 cents a pack.
Yeah, it says something like on the off-brand there. My household, the equivalent was couldn't do Cheerios. We did Toasted Oats. That was our knockoff cereal there. Toasted Oats. Look,
I thought the government cheese tasted pretty good myself, to be honest with you. To me, I preferred government cheese. We didn't have expensive condiments or anything like that in the house and all like that. My big thing that I thought was a treat was having Lee and Perrin's Worcestershire sauce.
Oh, okay. There you go.
And to this day, I put Lee and Perrin's Worcestershire sauce in. I cook meat, ground beef. I put that in there. I know you. I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but. And I'm surprised you don't know that. What Heinz 57? You've never had Heinz 57 sauce?
Yeah, you said that before. I mean, I love Heinz ketchup. I won't have any other ketchup for sure, but I've not had Heinz 57 sauce. No.
Man, I think Heinz 57 sauce is one of the just treasures of condiments. Period.
Okay.
Go out and buy Nick. And I know people said, no, you shouldn't eat. I can eat a steak any way you cook it for me, But I like to have a little pool of Heinz 57 sauce to go with my steak. I love to put it on chicken and burgers and all like that. Yeah, I just you're from Pittsburgh, I'm not, but I love Heinz 57 sauce. So anyway,
How do you cook your steak? How do you take it? And you said any which way. What is your preference?
I prefer it. I prefer it a little less than medium, and
Okay.
not medium rare, but a little less than medium. If
All
I
right.
have my
That's
druthers
fair.
there.
I'm a medium rare guy.
Why?
It's hard to find a good steak. I'm very picky with steak because you get so many of those that are just tough and chewy, and I'm just not a fan. So I got to find the right steak. I don't have it too often.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you can't go wrong with a good marbleized ribeye, So and then cook it medium. There. Where
All
was
right,
I?
get us
Where was
back
I
on
going to
track
go?
here, Dave.
Where was I going to go down that hole there? I don't remember. But anyway, all right. Brian Tellini in here. One last one. In regard to TJ Watt's contract, would this be a scenario with our current financial situation where a front-loaded contract might make more sense long term? We have extra cash to spend and most likely won't have an expensive quarterback to pay for years to come. Why not front-load it and make it the later years of the contract easier to swallow when production most likely dips? I don't think people like to throw around, and this is no offense to Brian Tellini, when they throw out front loaded contract, I don't think they really understand how most contracts are really anyway, especially the top of the market. Whenever you talk about deals and one such as the one, TJ Watt, Mika Fitzpatrick, and I mean even look at the Deshawn Elliott deal. When you look at the 15.5 million for the total of 3 years here. He's getting nearly 60% of that this year. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So he's getting nearly 60% of that $15.5 million in year one. After year two, if my numbers are correct here, he's getting almost 80% of the 3-year total by year two. All right. When you look at these contracts for your top players like TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, it's all about new money cash flow, especially in the first 2 and 3 years of these deals. These guys aren't going to sign these contracts if they're weighted heavily to the majority of the cash coming in years 4 and 5. So however you look at this, you've got to look at what the top of the market is, what the last guy got, how your cash flow stacks up in the first new. A lot of guys will look at the first new year and through the first 2 new years of the contract, and how does that stack up with what the last guy got? And if you're not in those thresholds or damn near close, you're not going to get the guy signed anyway. So rolling this back to what Brian's asking here, you're going to see when this deal gets done for TJ Watt, who's scheduled to earn $21 million in cash this year, that number, when he gets this deal signed, is going to be $40 to $45 million in cash that he's earning this year. And then your cash flow is going to go out from there where it's comparable to Garrett and whoever else gets done and all like that. So just by association with the market values and all like that, this is going to be a front-loaded contract anyway, and one that you're looking to get TJ Watt through at least 2025, at least through 2027 on, regardless. And then if you're worried about the cap and all like that, you've always got the ability to restructure, and if he stays healthy and all like that, to push cap money out into the future and all like that. So I think people throw out the word front-loaded contract, but most of these in the NFL anyway are front-loaded anyway. Like I said, look at Deshawn Elliott, where he's getting damn near going to get 60% of the 15.5 million in this year.
Yeah, well said. In many ways, these contracts, even though it's not, codified, but they're all kind of already slotted because it is all compared to what the market has set and maybe beating that by a little bit. So the structure of the deal in many ways is already in place for Pittsburgh and Watt's camp to go off of, and then you're working out some details from there.
Right. So, Brian, I hope we kind of answered that, more politely and educationally as possible. But long story short, this thing's going to be front loaded because that's what it's going to take with the cash flow through the first 2 new years of the contract to get him to agree to the deal anyway.
Yeah, well said. So that's all I got today, Dave, except for we're not even going to write about it for the site because it's more fodder, but looked like some beef between Antonio Brown and Cam Hayward. AB making some pretty disparaging comment on Twitter, and Hayward going after him said, "Let me know when you're back in the States." And AB, of course, still wanted for attempted murder, and apparently in the Middle East right now.
All right. Hopefully that's about the extent of the drama right there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. We will be back on this again on Friday, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get a guest on. You were with Ross McCorkle yesterday, right? On the Depot Dive, sitting in for the great Joe Clark.
Correct. Yeah, go check that out. Ross and I talk about the Elliott extension, running back room, and a lot more.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. That'll take you to PayPal to make a secure donation that way. Also, if you like an ad-free version, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow those directions that way. So, great show today. Had fun, Alex. We'll be back at it on Friday. And until then, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.